Welcome to Fan the Flames Live. I am super excited to be talking with Rebecca today. Rebecca and I crossed paths, maybe 2, 3 years ago now. I'm not 100% sure. And I've kind of been following what she's been doing. She's been following a little bit of what I've been doing, but I've always wanted to have a conversation with her about her work and kind of how her work shows up in the world and what it means. So I'm going to get Rebecca speaking so we can hear all about her work and hear about how she supports others in fanning their flames as well. Rebecca, great to see you.
Thank you so much for having me. I've been looking forward to this, as you know, since we planned it.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about sexual alchemy. How did it come about?
Oh, do you want I'll give you a medium version rather than a long, because we'll be here all day talking about that. And I mean, for me, sexual alchemy is a kind of thing that exists in the world, but I'll talk about how it came to me, like how
Mm,
it became my thing. I, I, I'm going to just start somewhere and you can bring me back to the
let's
middle
do
road.
that. Let's do
Okay.
that.
I had a lot of sexual energy all of my life, and didn't sometimes it worked for me and sometimes it didn't work for me, and sometimes I made poor choices and sometimes I made
Mm,
good choices. I was very curious about sexuality. I knew that there was much more to it than um I was going to say than we're taught, but we're not really taught anything, so more than meets the eye, shall we say. And eventually skipping a whole lot of story and moving into um it was just when I turned 40, I came across a tantra workshop, neo tantra workshop, at a festival, and I went to it. It was like a 2-hour introductory thing, and at the end of it, it was revelationary for me, because I
mm,
remember looking at the other participants who were walking around with just awe on their face at what had happened. And I then looked over at the teacher, and I've told this story before, but it was like in a film where a spotlight comes down, and then I heard in my ears, "You will do this work." And I was like, "No way. Like, what? No." And then I took her leaflet, because obviously this was many years ago. I took her leaflet. I put it next to the PC at home. Every now and then I would look at her website and kind of get scared. And then eventually I went on like an introductory weekend of hers.
mm,
And uh, not long after that, like 2 weeks later, she was beginning her annual deep dive course, which was the same group of people, I think maybe 20 of us, one weekend a month for 6 months. And I just knew I had to be on it. So again, long story short, I ended up on the course. And on the second weekend, she said to me, "Can you take, so and so out at lunchtime and do a session for him?" I was like, "What?" She said, "Just take him out. You'll know what to do." And I was like, "I don't know." She said, "Just ask him." And she was a bit curt. It was a bit like, I don't understand. But I asked him if he wanted to go and do a session, and he said yes. I was like, okay. So we
mm.
found a private space, and I was like, "What's going on?" And he told me, and I knew what to do. It's all I can tell you is I something arose within me that was like, "Well, if you do this and let's move your body that way," and I don't know, I can't remember what we did, but
Yeah.
he was blown away. He said his life has changed. And I went back to the teacher and said, "What the fuck was that?" Like, what was that? And she said, "You already know this stuff. You just don't know what you know." She said, "We need to awaken it within you, but
Mm.
it's already there." So I continued my training with her, but also went to every other teacher I could find that taught anything similar to awaken that which I already knew. And so, and that's it. That's how it
Like,
started.
so there's something really interesting there about sort of one stumbling across the event at a festival and deciding to go in. There are, there's this idea, I guess, that there are all of these open doors that are sitting out there in the world, and which door do we choose to walk through, and why do we choose those doors? And then this idea of you'll know what to do. You already know what to do. It's already within you. And I think there are so many people that know what to do but haven't found the place in which to do it in,
Yeah.
and don't have the opportunities perhaps to find those doors, or to the strength, the courage, the bravery to walk through those doors.
Absolutely. And if I think back, I was already then working with the same mentor I work with now, and she works intuitively. She taught me a lot of the intuitive work I do, and energy work. And she knew about my sexuality and how sometimes it was driving me in a good direction, sometimes it was driving me in a bad direction. And she kept feeling it was really fundamental to my beingness, but we didn't get any further. So when I came back from the festival and said to I went on this workshop, she said to me, I feel like you need to go and work with this teacher. And I was like, I don't wanna, I'm scared. But it was her encouragement that that helped me fan that flame, if you will. And then it was this teacher recognizing something in me, that I don't know that I could have recognized in myself. I would have just thought it was a personal expression,
Yeah.
perhaps for me to examine or explore, but it would never have occurred to me that I would be working in this field. Although it was a natural progression from what I was doing. I was already working with the body and energy system. I was already trained in a lot of body work modalities and energy healing modalities, and I was doing that work. It's just then that moved into sexual healing.
So that it's interesting, because sometimes when we think about our journeys, we don't notice that we're already on the journey. We can look back years later and go, oh wow, look at these dots, this pathway that I've traveled upon. But when we're traveling it, we can't always see it. It's not always present to us. And so it's interesting that you were doing this kind of work anyway, but there was this kind of little shift, an extra nudge, a little direction that kind of tuned that work up a notch or another level.
Yeah. Yeah. And I could even go back further over my life with hindsight, of course, and see, like at uni, I had no idea what I wanted to be when I grew up, kind of thing. And I studied, it was called human services. And what that was a lot of like human growth and development, psychology, sociology, philosophy. It was about humans and how they be in the world, which has always fascinated me. And that, evolved into healing work and body work, which evolved into this, which is where I'm supposed to be. But who would have known, like all those years ago?
I always find that really kind of, I guess, rewarding when we arrive where we're supposed to be, because often there can be so much concern and worry about, well, where am I going? What am I supposed to do? And there's also this idea of, well, just allow, play, explore, see, try different things, and allow those experiences to guide you, as opposed to just an intellectual idea guide you. Tune into the senses, the body, the sensation, and go, well, what is that telling me?
Yeah. What are my spidey senses telling me? That embodied sense of knowing. Yeah. And, I remember reading about, I think it was Liz Gilbert, a writer, who said that she was in between books and she felt kind of dry and didn't have anything, she was, I don't know. And so she just thought, okay, what do I feel move towards right now? And what she felt moved towards was going outside in her garden. And she was like, okay. And she kept following that kind of sense of curiosity, but like an embodied sense of curiosity. And she started exploring the plants and becoming interested and looking up their names. And it turned out her next novel was like about a botanist or something, but it was not something her mind went, I know, I'll write about a botanist. It was following that felt sense of knowing. She didn't know where it was going, and she wasn't looking for the next book. She was just kind of being present with what was here, what was arising. Where's my body want to go?
And I guess I'm guessing that this is part of your work, so we can kind of delve into that a little bit. But I've got this sense that part of your work is about, well, how do I be present to the body, and how do I listen to that as information, as opposed to try and work it all out.
Very much so. Yeah. Yeah. If you think about it, the world we live in, wherever you are, pretty much values here from here up, the thinking analytical mind, right? But we are not just this. We are
Mm,
all of that as well. And, you know, even science has studied that we have a brain in the heart, like brain thinking tissue and a brain in the gut. And we're
yeah.
meant to have all three connected. But well, I could go down the whole rabbit hole of why we're not. But anyway, so we're trained that this is okay. It's all right for us to think things and it's all right to analyze things, but feeling something or having a felt sense of knowing or having, your what I call the spidey senses is when your body knows. And your
Mm,
body will know something before your mind knows it. Like a sense of danger, for example. Your mind might not know what's going on, but your body can feel something.
yeah. Yeah, and I'm doing some work at the moment with Claire Dell over at Physical Intelligence Institute, and we've just talked a little bit about the head, the heart, and the gut, and how
Okay.
there is the brain that sits there, and how information is being sent from these parts to the brain.
Right.
It's not just the brain going, heart do this, gut do this. There's this conversation that's happening all the time, and it's like we don't tune into that conversation. We get very caught in one. It's like we've just turned the bass up and there's no
Right.
treble and there's no balance at
Right.
play. It's just one key that's been turned up. So we don't hear any of the other qualities or subtleties until we quieten the mind down. And I guess that's why when we meditate, we become more aware of our physicality.
Yeah, you can do. It depends. Sometimes it depends how you meditate, because sometimes meditation takes me off out into the cosmos and I'm not with my body at all. So I would
Mm,
have to consciously choose to focus on my body, which is really powerful. Like I could tune into my heart as a meditation, or I could tune into my guts as a meditation, or I could tune into my genitals as a meditation. If I kind of just try to let my mind go, I often just go floating outward.
I love it. You're out there somewhere
Yeah.
floating in the cosmos. Well, that's interesting, isn't it? Because I wonder how many of us, when we meditate, make a conscious choice of where we're going to go
Mm.
and what we're going to allow. And if I listen to meditation apps and things, they tell you where to go, but you're kind of following their lead as opposed to making that conscious choice yourself and going, I'm going to do this.
Which is still really helpful though. Like
Hmm.
this, because there's so many factors, isn't there? There's why are you meditating? What
Yeah.
do you hope to get from it? What do you want to get from it? What's your intention? Because, intention sets the course for energy to flow. And so, you know, often, like years ago, I used to do what I called sonatate, which was at our local gym, there was a sauna and I would sit in there and meditate. For some reason, I found it really easy there, but I had kind of healing intent. And so my intent was, do you know Dr. Joe Dispenza? He does all the,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, how he healed his body by focusing on it and he knew the body. So I don't know the body as accurately as he does. And so I would go out into the universe to find the perfect healed version of myself and kind of tap into that matrix and kind of stretch into it and kind of doing energetic work that way. But I was
Mm.
gone, and then inevitably somebody would come into the sauna and be talking loudly and that would kind of bring me out of it. But yeah, so you can set intention. You can, and I mean, I wrote a book about it, but you can actually, meditation doesn't always have to be going inward. It is, for me, it is being utterly present with whatever you're doing. So,
Mm.
planting in the garden could be a meditation, doing the washing up can be a meditation, making love can be a meditation, cooking dinner can be a meditation. Are you being exquisitely present to the thing that's in front of you? And that can
Yeah.
be a meditation.
Yeah. And there's something about how do we do that through life? If all of these things can be a meditation, how do we allow ourselves to get so present with what's happening? Because I think when I think about coaching, I think about people coming to coaching, often a lot of what we do is is get present. Somebody says, I want to achieve this, but actually a lot of the work is going, but who are you and where are
Yes.
you in this space? And once you get that, then the achieving of whatever becomes easy or non-important or even non-existent, because
Right.
we've actually, I think you said it earlier, we come home to the self, and that's where all the answer is, and that's where all the joy is and the bliss is.
It's really similar in my work, like whatever intention or request or what issue that people present with, the answer always starts with the self. Like, I want to be a better lover, I want to heal this issue, I want to, whatever it is, the foundation is what's going on here. Like I always
Mm,
say, more important than what you're doing in the bedroom is who you're being. Who are you being? And
yeah,
and bringing your presence, like you said. And I do want to say, presence is a practice.
yeah.
It is a practice. Yeah. Yeah.
And I love that. Who are you being? Because I think what can happen to us is we're playing a role instead of being ourselves.
Yeah.
And so that connection can't happen because that's not us.
Right. It's a barrier to intimacy.
Yeah. And so you do, is it mostly men or only men that you work with, or
Only men now. Yeah. I used to
yeah.
work with women and everybody, every gender, and couples and thruples and all of that. But my sweet spot is men. So
Yeah.
that's where I focus now.
And and so I'm assuming that there's a sort of an energy work and a presence work and the intention work that sits with what you do with men to enable them to I was going to say achieve sexual mastery. I don't know if you achieve it. Do you become it? I'm not quite sure what the phrase is that sits with that.
Probably also practice. But like a constant evolving, a constant practice of
Hmm.
mastery. Like,
Yeah.
I think it was Dizzy Gillespie. Somebody said to him, "Oh, why do you still practice every day?" This is like at the end of his career. Why do you still practice every day? And he said, "Well, I think I'm getting all right now." Like, it's just there's always somewhere to grow and evolve.
Yeah.
If you think you've arrived, you've created your own limit.
Hmm.
There's always something new to learn. And this is the thing with presence that's so delicious. This present moment has never happened before.
Yeah.
It's always brand new. I don't know what's going to unfold. I don't know what's here. It's exciting, and with intimacy and pleasure and connection and all of that, like, you can never be bored in your sex life if you practice presence.
Yeah.
It's always new.
And it's sort of making me think about how often or how what's the word I'm looking for here, how we don't practice presence, how we don't practice being here, and sometimes we just expect it to arrive. We kind of have this idea that I'll just be good at being present, I'll just be good at being intimate, it will just come to me in the moment, as opposed to there is a crafting, there is a practicing, there is a thinking about and a contemplating that needs to go into creating that space.
Yeah, and there's many components, like we were saying earlier about the spidey senses. If you're being sexual with your body, I mean, there's mental sexuality stuff, but we still experience it with our body. Can you even feel your body? A lot of
Hmm.
people don't feel much from the neck down. And so even feeling your feelings, learning to go back and feel old stuff that needs to be felt and cleared, and learning to process what comes up in the moment is a route to being better in the bedroom.
Hmm.
Because if you are holding back stuff that you're afraid to feel, or it was too much to feel when you were 5, or whatever it is, first of all, it's lodged in your system, and second of all, you're also keeping a lid on it. I couldn't possibly feel that thing. It's a tsunami. It's going to blow me away. But you don't get to choose that the door's open or not to close to
Yeah.
feeling. If it's closed,
Yeah.
it's closed. So
Yeah.
you're not going to, have bigger and better orgasms or feel more your partner more if you're closed. So it's not just about I often say whatever sexual issue somebody comes with, the actual issue sits somewhere else.
I mean, this is often what we say in coaching. What somebody arrives with isn't the thing that they want to look at. It's an indication,
Right.
but it's not the thing.
Yeah. And I was saying yesterday, actually, the thing they arrive with that they think is the problem is actually a symptom of the problem.
Yeah. Yeah. And we've got to go on our search to go, right, so we think it's that, but that's just a point on the map to show us where we might need to go. And then once we explore what the truer, because I don't know if we always get to the real, but we get to a truer aspect and unlock that, then everything else just kind of ripples out from there. And the thing that they thought was an issue just kind of vanishes magically, as it were.
Yeah. And because we are complex beings, as something clears from the body and you feel a bit of freedom and liberation, eventually something new will rise up.
Yes.
Like once you start self-examining, as you know, like there's always something, there's always deeper and more evolved to go. But it's why not do that?
And I think it's it's the gift and the curse of self-development is when you begin it, you go, oh, wow, I've dealt with my stuff. And you go, oh, no, there's some other stuff. Oh, no, there's some other stuff. Oh, right. Okay. And I think that's, speaking to what you were saying earlier, the idea of mastery, I feel that that's where that sits. It's like we go on the search of mastery of the self and and that's a continual exploration because we find ever more subtleties in the self that we can explore and navigate. And then there are things that come along and trigger us that we didn't even know existed. And we have to then sit with those and go, oh, okay, this is new, right? What do I want to do with this?
Yeah. You're reminding me, many years ago, I was doing some work with, I think it was a kinesiologist, big piece of work. And I kind of felt resolved, like we got somewhere. And I took her this big bouquet of flowers and said, that was amazing. We've done this big piece of work. And she went, don't give me those. And I was like, what do you mean? She said, don't give me that. She said, there is no end to this work. Like she said, like, you don't know what's coming next or what's deeper or what's underneath that. Or, and I was like, oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
I mean, you can complete a piece of work, I think. It just means that, there's always more.
And I think part of what happens when we complete a piece of work, it's like a chapter. We finish that chapter. Yeah. Okay, are you ready to start the next chapter? Are you ready to start the next chapter? Are you ready to start the next chapter?
Yeah.
And we can choose at any point to put the book down and go, do you know what? I'm going to leave that for a while. I'm going to come back to that book another time. But there's always another chapter to explore, another book. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is amazing because, not to go too deep or anything, but like we perceive of ourselves as these human beings, solid things that have this life and do this stuff. But what we really are is consciousness evolving, and so I feel like when that which we've come here to do is finished, then we move on to another consistency, which may not include the body, and then we come back. So it's not that I think sometimes I get frustrated, or I know clients get frustrated. There's always more to learn. I find it's mostly exciting. There's always somewhere to grow that you can never get bored.
Well, that's interesting. It's like, how do we flip that idea? Oh, there's more to, oh, there's more.
Yeah.
Because it's like we get frustrated with the wealth of knowledge and information there is out there for us to kind of take on, as opposed to getting delighted about it and interested and curious about it. And perhaps there's something to do with our society about, you do this, you finish it, you complete it, you sit in that box for the rest of your life kind of thing. So this idea that there is no box and we keep growing and we keep evolving and keep changing shape and ideas, perhaps that's quite hard for people to kind of contend with, because they have a desire to hold us still so they can navigate from us. But if we keep moving, they don't know where to navigate, and they don't navigate from themselves. So they're looking for an
Right.
external navigation to hold them in place.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? Because I'm sure you've seen like research when somebody makes a big change with it, they lose a lot of weight or they get another degree or something, their like friends and family group it'll ruffle feathers
Yeah.
because their reference point is outside of themselves.
So when I used to teach coaching in the first module, the foundation module, I used to say to people, "This is a journey that's going to create change in you. Yes, the work we're exploring is about how do we support others in their change, but by exploring it, we change."
Right.
And I talk about this idea that we're like planets and we're orbiting each other, and other planets are orbiting us as different family members and friends. But when we do this work and we change, we shift orbit, and the other planets around us adjust to that orbit change. And that can be a little bit uncomfortable as they move, but also some planets will spin away
Right.
because they don't sit with that orbit anymore. But also new planets will come into your orbit and spin with you. And that's, for me, that's always been that idea of when I change or shift or grow, I meet new people. And
Right.
some people will drift away, but new people will come. It's like we're just kind of exchanging orbits here. And it's just like this
Right.
big galactic dance that we're doing.
And it's awesome. I think that, there's an old story that we're taught that there's a certain linear path to life, like the old fashioned, like you go to school, then you go to college, and then you get married and have 2.3 children, and you have a job and you get a gold watch at the end of 25 years. If you're lucky, you get a little retirement together, and then you die. And so and you're supposed to stay with the same person, and you're
Mm,
supposed to but life isn't like that anymore. Like everything changes all the time. We can change our home and our city and our jobs, and people are changing things faster and more often, especially because the last couple of years. And so
yeah.
then if you are also growing yourself, your beingness, your foundation, I think it's great. But anyone who needs your someone outside of themselves to be the solid
Mm,
point of reference is going to be ruffled,
yeah.
but that's okay. I'd
And
rather evolve and grow.
yeah, and I think what can happen, especially if we have that kind of people pleasing tendency about us, is that we see the feathers ruffled, and we go, oh, okay, I'll go back to what I was, and then
Yes.
everybody's okay, and everybody
Yeah.
feels safe and settled again. I guess it's part of that, that human desire for certainty. It's like if
Yeah.
you're changing, what does this mean? Is the whole world going to change? And it probably throws us back to some sort of childhood thing where there is certainty around our caregivers, or some sense of certainty around caregivers and around timings and around locations. And when those things are different as a child, as a baby, there is an anxiety there because we're like, are they going to come back?
It's
Are
like a
they what?
survival thing, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. And I think when we're older, that kind of kicks in without us recognizing that actually I'm not a child anymore. It's okay. I can go into the world myself. I don't need the support of my family unit, whatever that might be, to take me into the world or to protect me from the world.
Yeah, and there's a real thing, isn't there, about like as the person who's doing the growing and evolving, also having to grow and evolve their sense of belonging, sense of safety, sense of security as being present here and not outside as
Yeah,
well. Because, certainly like when I started learning massage and energy healing, I was married to someone who was not interested in that stuff at all. And for a while that was okay, but at some point there was like a seed in my mind that was like, he's not growing and evolving at all. He doesn't have to grow and evolve in the same direction as me. But if he doesn't grow at all, I'm going to, like you said with the planets, I'm going to spin too far out.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I can either hold myself back and die, like whether it's physical death or just soul death,
yeah,
or I'm just going to have to see what happens. And of course, what happened was he just staunchly refused to do anything. And that's fine. Like, I don't even say that's blame. Like, each to his own, and we make our choice, whatever, you want to throw
yeah,
at that.
yeah.
But it was terrifying and exhilarating to say, yeah, okay, my love, but I can't stay here.
Yeah.
I need my soul will crumble if I stay here. And I've done that before in relationships and left too late.
Hmm.
And I'm not willing
Hmm.
to do that now.
And there's also something not only about relationships but spaces as well. So
Yeah.
sometimes there's this thought of this space is holding me back. I need a new space.
Yeah.
Or or we get a calling to a destination, and we go, I don't know why I want to go there, but I need to go there to do what I need to do next. And
Yeah,
I think there's
totally.
something really interesting in how do we listen to that as well.
Trusting your spidey senses. Although two things are coming to mind. One is, I moved here from America in 87. I'm very, very old. And, when I was at uni and somebody asked me what I was going to do when I finished and, what was something I'd always wanted to do. And I was like, well, I kind of wanted to travel. And he got up in my face and said, if you don't go when you graduate, you will never leave the States. You will never have a passport. He was very
Mm.
adamant. And I was like, shit, I better make this happen. Of course, this is long before the internet. So I went and found on the campus of the university, the International House, which was like where they had leaflets about countries outside America. And like they could, I mean, it was very hilarious. This was like, East Tennessee. Um, anyway, something in me knew I had to come here. So I like traveled around Europe, came here, and it instantly felt like home. And I
Mm.
cannot tell you why or how. I'd never been here. I don't have my ancestry's not from here, nothing. But it felt like home enough that I just knew I would end up staying. I didn't know how,
Mm.
and then
Mm.
life evolved and things happened and I ended up staying here. So like you say, like had to change. And turns out this work that I do in certain ways and certain things I do isn't really legal in America, but it
Right.
is legal here.
Okay.
And like the universe, like, yeah, we're going to have to transplant you over to England where you can grow and do all this. You've got your degree. Now you go over there and do all the other stuff and become who you're supposed to be.
That's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's really fascinating.
And the
And
other story that reminded me of is Todd, my partner, for those who don't know. I'm pointing that way because he's over there. Um, he's been working from home like everybody, for the last couple of years, but he hates working from home, hates it. It's just not his way. And
mm,
eventually, recently, he's like, I need to not be at home. And his ideal would be to some sort of like shared office in a town or something where he could
yeah,
go out at lunchtime and go, chat to people or whatever. He hasn't found that place yet, but he did find a place that it's on a farm, and it's like a space that you get to yourself and you can see the fields and cows and sheep. I don't know, and although it's not the next best, sorry, it is the next best thing. It's not where he wants
yeah.
to end up, but his whole demeanor and everything about him has changed because he's got this change of location coming up, and
That's
then he can grow.
interesting.
He knew that this
Yeah.
space he wasn't going to grow anymore. It just wasn't right for him.
And there was something about what you said about the getting somewhere that you don't know and feeling home. I'm really curious about how many people that are watching or listening that have been somewhere and gone, have I been here before? This feels kind of familiar, but I don't know it. So how do I know it? Or I kind of recognize this territory, having never been here or seen it before, but it feels familiar. And I'm always curious about that, I guess, from an energetic perspective of, are we being called to that space, or have we been to this place previously before our current consciousness was aware of it, and all of that kind of juicy stuff.
Yeah, and it can be any and all of the above, can't it? Like I know I felt similar in Italy, but I think, and from working with my mentor, I think I've had a lot of past lives in Italy. And so it just felt familiar. I didn't feel I needed to live there. I just like
Mm.
needed to bask there a little bit, and it wasn't like modern Italy. It would have been ancient Italy, it was a bit
Yeah.
more voluptuous, let's say. But England, I don't, in any ties that I can imagine ancestrally being here would have been much more, what's the word I want? More with the lineage that I kind of work with rather than my physical family
Yeah.
ancestry. Yeah. And I don't
Yeah.
even know if that's right. I just know it felt like home. And maybe it felt like home because the universe was saying, put a pin in it, stay here.
Yeah.
This is where you
Yeah.
need to be.
Yeah. This is
Yeah.
where you need to be.
Yeah.
And that's also, I mean, as I'm thinking about all of this, I'm thinking about how does this thinking show up in your work? Because as I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking all of this is kind of giving, it feels like it's about giving permission. It feels like it's about going, this is okay, explore, find, see what feels right. Okay, sit with that. Does it feel right to be here long term or just for a moment? Okay, just for a moment. Okay, and then move on. It feels like it's this huge permission slip of beingness.
It's funny you say that because I used to talk about my work was giving permission and possibilities. Permission to be your full sexual self, permission to explore, permission to ask for what you want, that kind of thing,
Mm,
and and then possibilities because a lot of people that I worked with had been shut down for so long or had suppressed that information for so long they didn't even know where to start. So I could say, well, here's a little menu,
yeah,
have a little taster session or you know
yeah.
and then once someone could taste a few things or see a few options that were available, then their own innate knowing would start to wake up.
Oh, now I'm all in the world of food. I'm all in that space of that, especially when there's like a tasting menu and you go, oh, that's nice. And okay, well that's similar to that but slightly different. Oh, okay, and that's slightly different. Okay, and that's slightly different. Oh no, that's too far. That's different.
Right.
That's a difference too
Ooh, that
far.
burned the mouth or
Yeah, and okay, so I'm gonna go and yeah, and also when you're creating dishes and just kind of going, how far can I push that flavor and what do I need to pull back on there? And oh, yeah, menu, food, that's it. I'm off.
and what's interesting is food and sexuality are related because they're sensual experiences if you're present
Yeah,
to them, like
yeah,
for some people food is just fuel, they don't think about it, it's like but what you're talking about is a real deep love and appreciation for it. And so
yeah.
food, you can engage with food with your sight, the colors and textures and how it's been laid out on the plate, and all of that and how these match with that. And then there's the taste of it, there's the smell of
Mm,
it, it might be how it feels in your hand. Are you feeding it to yourself with your hands? And there's a whole
mm,
kind of thing going
yeah.
on there. Off he goes. There's a really
Yeah.
beautiful ritual that's done in a lot of neo tantra workshops. It's really beautiful where, and I've done it with clients. So let me talk to it from that place. So before the client comes, I would set everything up, really beautiful space. I would blindfold them and bring them into the space and sit them down somewhere really comfortable. And then we go on a journey of the senses. And so first there might be sound, and I might shake some shakers, and then I might like plinky plonky something, and then there might be a bell, but different sounds in different parts of the room. And so
Mm,
they're being really present. And then suddenly there's something here and there's something there. Maybe there's something here. And it kind of, you can only be present. And then after sound, you might do smell. And so I might wave a, bottle of cinnamon oil under their nose and then let that disperse and then something else. And, and sometimes depending on what your agreement is, it might be always nice things. And sometimes it might be, pepper or lemon or something
mm,
that's not. And then you go through all the senses. There can be touch that can be fun and playful. Like when I was receiving this once, they had like a teddy bear and they were getting the teddy bear to kiss me, or it can be very sensual, or it can be however you want. And then taste, and you feeding them bits of stuff, and you might wave it under the nose first, and then just move it on their lips, and then they go to bite it and you take it away, and you can get all kind of saucy with that if you want to, and then eventually you go to sight because they've been blindfolded, so all their senses are heightened. Then you take the blindfold off, and either they get to see the beautiful spread that you've laid out, or you're there looking into their eyes and you do some eye gazing together, and then you go in and enjoy all the treats together. And that is a feast, and you can do that with just food.
And what I love about that, it's like we're tuning into all the senses and then turning them all up. We're just kind of turning all the different frequencies up. And so you talked about spider senses. It's like we're just really tuning into our spider senses and going, right, beyond myself, what can I hear, what can I tune into, what can I become aware of? And of course, when we do that, then we can become aware of more, and we can become aware of more, and then we can really begin to push those boundaries. It feels like also when a client in a coaching space and they go, well, this is what I'm looking for, and they start to look for it in the world, they start to see more, and they start to see more, and those opportunities start to, and it's that kind of, you said it earlier about intention and tuning in and turning up and dialing in, and it just feels like this beautiful dance of senses to really go, right, so in my presenceness, what can I tune into all around me?
And then as you've honed those skills, then you take that into your erotic encounters. And there's so much more available in an erotic encounter than meets the eye. Like if you, just for conversation purposes, if you imagine two people, a bit of foreplay, a bit of something, whatever, linear kind of sex story. But imagine those two people then have honed their skills, have honed their senses, and can be really present. And then you drop something erotic in there, or you bring some arousal to it. And instead of hurrying to get somewhere, you be here with what is. There's actually in Tantra, there's 112 sutras, which are sutras like a saying or a paragraph or a parable or something that's, the teachings of. Of those 112, only 6 are actually about sex, but that's a whole other thing. But one of them, and I can never remember it, they're all very poetic, and I can never remember exactly, but it says something like, when lovemaking, tend to the, how does it go? Tend to the, I can't remember how it goes, but basically what it's saying is that the smoldering embers that you get at the beginning, stay with them, tend to them, stay with them some more, drop into them. And it's like, you could fan the flame and have something amazing, but don't be in a hurry to get there. Like stay present with those embers and ride the flavors and textures and senses of those embers. And what will happen naturally, like tantrikas talk about riding the waves of pleasure, is that it will become a flame, it will become a huge roaring fire flame, and then it will slowly come back, and it might only get here, and then it might rise again, and it will peak and fall and peak and fall. And you may or may not have had an orgasm, or someone may or may not have been penetrated, but you will have had the most beautiful erotic experience you could imagine.
And that really speaks to that the idea of journey as opposed to destination. And fanning the flame, tending to the flame, and allowing that to be the focus of the work, not getting distracted by what's outside, but staying present to what's there.
You know what Todd says?
What's Todd say?
Says, fascination, not destination.
Yes. Love it.
Yeah.
I love it. So
it's
Rebecca,
also okay to have a destination. It's also okay to intend to get somewhere, whether that's sexual or not. But if that's your only way, you're limited.
But and this is it, isn't it? It's like I want to get there, but if I just get there and I don't see that journey, I don't experience that journey, then when I get there, there's a sense of, well, what was that?
Right.
But when I take the time to see the trees and the houses and the fields and everything around, there's so much more richness involved in that journey. And then it means that if you don't arrive at the destination, there isn't a disappointment.
Right.
Whatever that destination is, because you've enjoyed the journey to reach to yeah, the traveling of.
Yeah. And that's what, that's the becoming, isn't it? Like, if I
Mm,
can't, who I am right now, enjoy mastery of something, let's say, because I haven't yet taken that journey. As I go on the journey, I become that.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
the saying, if you win £1 million on the lottery, you better fast become a millionaire. And what it means is, if I win £1 million on the lottery today, well, I've not had £1 million. And if I don't examine my money issues and stuff around being a millionaire, I'm going to lose it. I'm going to
yeah.
go back to my old ways with money, or, but if I become a millionaire, then I can hold that £1 million.
Yeah,
You have to become the thing. And that's
yeah.
the journey, isn't it? That's a
Mm.
growth and, self-examinations, coaching and healing and all that.
So we're going to have you back because time's running out. I
So,
feel like we've just scratched the surface. I feel like there's so much more spaces for us to go to and to explore. So got to get you back. Got to do more of the exploration of the journey. What is it that Sod said? I feel that feels like a good place to.
fascination, not destination. Where that came up, just to give it context, was he goes for a lot of walks, and particularly walks in the woods. And he was noticing at the time that this came up that he was like, I got to get through the woods because I'm going for a walk in the woods, and I'm going to go around the path, and and it was like, well, then he's missing the walk in the woods.
Yeah,
So that the point then became fascination, not destination, rather than trying to get
yeah,
somewhere, to be fascinated with where he was.
beautiful,
I know he
beautiful.
has a way with words and
He
concept.
does. He does indeed. So, Rebecca, where can people find you if they want to find out more about your work, if they want to work with you? What's the best way for them to do that?
Um, email or my website or social media. I'm everywhere these days. I joined TikTok recently. That's a whole other journey. I know, it's hilarious. But I'm either Rebecca Lowrie or Sexual Alchemy, everywhere. And the same with the website, sexualalchemy.com or RebeccaLowrie.com is the same website. And then they can contact me
Brilliant.
from there. Thank you.
Awesome. Rebecca, it's been a real pleasure. I look forward to speaking with you again. And, people that have been listening, that have been watching, I'm curious, what are you taking from this conversation? What spark or ember has been alighted in you? What would you like to go on a journey of? Or what mastery is being sparked for you here? Let us know either in the comments, drop us an email, reach out, whatever that might be. Rebecca, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Oh, thank you so much. That was awesome.